Hi friends, welcome to my NCERT at your fingertips series in which I have covered each page of NCERT and will also give practice questions after each page. So in this video, I will cover Geography chapter 1, Resources and Development, and in the subsequent videos, I will be covering other chapters of class 10 SST and Science. Please watch till end as I have given a lot of colorful pictures and notes which will help you to visualize the chapter properly. I have divided this chapter into two parts. In the first part, I will cover the basic definition of resource, classification of resources, resource depletion, conservation, resource planning, and land resources. In the second part, I will cover soil and various types of soil in India. So first of all, let's understand what is a resource. So a resource is anything which can be used to satisfy our needs. For example, let us take the example of my phone. So my phone is technologically accessible. This means that we have the technology to make smartphones. Second, it is economically accessible. This means that I can buy the smartphone and it is not very expensive. Third, it is culturally acceptable. So this means that many people are using smartphones and the society has accepted smartphones. So on basis of this example, we can summarize the definition of resources as that resource is anything which can be used to satisfy our needs provided that it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. Now let us take another example to understand the definition of resource, that is of solar energy. So currently we have the technology to tap solar energy, but it is very expensive. So therefore it is not used by many people. So this means that though the solar energy is technologically accessible, but it is not economically feasible or culturally acceptable. So it is not classified as it is classified as a potential resource which we are not using currently. Now let us understand the classification of resources. So resources are divided into different types based on four major factors. These are origin, exhaustibility, ownership, and status of development. Now we will understand each of them in detail. On basis of origin, resources are divided into biotic and abiotic resources. Biotic resources. So as the name suggests, these are the living things. For example, humans, animals, plants. Abiotic resources. These are the non-living things. For example, rocks, water, air, etc. Second, so on the basis of exhaustibility, resources are classified into renewable and non-renewable resources. Renewable resources. So the meaning of the word renew that is to replenish. So these resources can be renewed or replenished by physical, chemical or mechanical processes. For planting trees is a physical process as we can manually plant trees with the help of our hands. But solar energy is formed by a chemical process because it is formed when chemical reactions take place inside the sun. So in this way, renewable resources are renewed in different ways. Now let us understand the non-renewable resources. So these resources take billions of years to form. And as the name suggests, if once they are finished, then they cannot be renewed. But they are classified into two types which are recyclable and non-recyclable. Under recyclable, we have the metals which can be recycled and under non-recyclable, we have fossil fuels such as coal, petroleum, natural gas which cannot be recycled once their stock is finished. And approximately scientists predict that the reserves of mineral oil will finish in 50 years. Third, on the basis of ownership. So on the basis of ownership, resources are classified into individual resources, community resources, national resources and international resources. First, individual resources. So these are the resources that are owned privately by individuals. For example, in rural areas, the fields of farmers and the wells are individual resources. And in urban areas, the houses, cars, buildings, plots, etc. are the individual resources. Second, community resources. So these are the resources that are accessible to all the members of a community. So for example, if in a community there are 50 people, then all those 50 people own that resource. And the examples of such resources are public park, village pond and burial ground. And these resources do not belong to a single person but to the entire community. Third, national resources. So technically every resource belongs to the nation. And also the country has legal powers to acquire private land for public good. For example, you must have seen that railway tracks are constructed on the land owned by some individuals. And in addition, the oceanic area up to 12 nautical miles, that is 22.2 kilometers, comes under the national resources. And this is known as territorial water. And all the things that such as fishing, mining, oil exploration, etc., which is conducted in this area belongs to that country. And in addition, 200 nautical miles from the coastline, all the water in that area also is classified as the exclusive economic zone. And the economic resources in that water belong to the country. Fourth, international resources. So these are the resources that are not owned by a single country but are regulated by international institutions such as the United Nations. So examples include the oceanic area beyond the exclusive economic zone, and all that is known as the open ocean, and it is not owned by a single country. So all the ocean part after 200 nautical miles is termed as open ocean, and this area does not is not under the control of a single country, but it is owned. It is regulated by some international institutions. Fourth, on the basis of status of development. So on this status of development, resources are classified into potential resources, stock resources, reserves, and developed resources. First, potential resources. So these are the resources that are found in a region but they are not being used because of lack of technology, very high cost, etc. So for example, Gujarat and Rajasthan have very high potential for wind and solar energy generation, but due to lack of technology or very high cost, it is not being used. So potential resources are the resources which can be used but are not being used because of various factors. Second, stock resources. So these are the resources which are not being used at all because we do not know how to use them. So for example, water is a compound of oxygen and hydrogen gases, and both of these gases are of very high utility value, but we don't know how to extract these gases from water. So such resource is classified as a stock resource. Third, reserves. So these resources are those resources which can be used with the existing technology, but they are not being used to meet the future requirements. So these are the resources which we store for the future. So this will be cleared better with the help of example. So for example, USA has plenty of mineral oil reserves, but it is importing oil from other countries and it is saving its reserves for the future. Fourth, developed resources. So these are the resources which are being used currently. So we know everything about them and we are using them in the present time. So examples include coal, mineral oil, wood, etc. Now human beings consider resources to be free gifts of nature and they are using the resources without thinking. Now this indiscriminate use of resources results in a lot of problems. For example, depletion of resources, Second, accumulation of resources in a few hands. So now due to this accumulation of resources, it has divided the society into haves and have-nots. So the people which have all these resources, access to all these resources, they are the rich people, and the majority of the population which does not have any access to such resources, they are the poor people. So, so accumulation of resources divides society into rich and poor. Third, global ecological crisis. So due to the indiscriminate use of resources, many problems such as global warming, ozone depletion, land degradation, pollution, etc. are caused. Now let us see the various solutions to this problem. So first is sustainable development. It has two aspects. Number one, sustainable development means that development should happen without damaging the environment. And second, the development should happen while conserving the resources for the future generations. So this means that we should not use the resources so indiscriminately that for the future generations the resources are finished. Second, Agenda 21. Now this is it is a declaration signed by all the world leaders in 1992 at UNCED. Now this is United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, and this agenda aims at achieving global sustainable development. The third solution is resource planning. So now let's study the resource planning in India. Now in India, some regions are have very rich resources, but others have very deficient resources. So balanced planning of resources is required. So now this process is conducted in 3 steps. Step 1 is identification of resources across the country. So the government surveys and maps which resources present in which state of the country, and it also estimates how much resources present and of what quality. Then step 2, the government plans a structure for implementation of the resource development plans. It also plans a technology, skill and institutional setup that is required for the implementation of this resource developmental plan. Third, the government matches this resource development plan with the overall national development plans. So it basically decides that it matches the resource development plans according to the needs of the nation and also according to the future plans. So let's understand this with the help of an example. We will take the example of that the government has to do a coal mining project. So first step, it will survey and map that where the coal is present. So we know that the coal is present in the Deccan Plateau and all the resources are present in that area. So the government will first decide the place where this mining has to be done. Then it will move to step 2, that is that it will plan a structure for implementation of this plan. So the government will decide that what technology and what labor and what transport facilities will be required for this mining of coal. And third, it will match the mining of coal plan with the overall national plans. So this means that the government will decide that on the basis of the needs of the nation, at what rate it should mine the coal and how much part of the economy it should dedicate to the mining of coal. Now let us understand the land resources. So land is obviously a very important resource. Obviously, if there was no land, then where would we live? Not in the air, of course. So land supports natural vegetation, wildlife, human life, transport, communication, various economic activities, etc. Now let us understand the land resources in our country. So land in India is divided into basically 3 parts. Plateau, plains and mountains. So land under plains is 43%, and this land is mainly used for agriculture and industry. Mountains account for 30% land, and they are a source of rivers. The rivers originate from mountains, and they also are the source of tourism, recreation, etc. Third, plateaus. So plateau land accounts for 27%. And plateaus are the reserves of mineral deposits, fossil fuels, etc. Now let us understand the land use in India. So in India, land is used for 5 main purposes: forests, land not available for cultivation, other uncultivated land, fallow land, and net sown area. Forests. So by law, 33% of the land should be dedicated to the forests. But in India, currently the forest land accounts for only 23%. Second, land not available for cultivation. So this includes barren land, wasteland, and other land put to other non-agricultural uses such as roads, houses, buildings, etc. Third, other uncultivated land. So these include permanent pastures which are used for grazing, and some tree groves or grasslands. So such as bamboo groves, they are classified in this other cultivated land, uncultivated land. But the crop plants, they are not classified in this tree groves. And third, wasteland, which is capable of cultivation. So this means that the agricultural land has been left uncultivated for more than 5 years. That is classified as wasteland. Fourth, fallow land. So this is of two types. Current fallow, which includes agriculturable land which has been left uncultivated for 1 or less years, and other than current fallow, which includes uncultivated land which has been left uncultivated for past 1 to 5 years. And then there is net sown area. So this is the total area in a particular area in a particular year on which the crops are raised. So this is basically the land which has been dedicated to the agriculture in a particular year. So to sum up, we can say that if the land is cultivated within 1 year, then it comes under net sown area. If the land is not cultivated within 1 year, then it comes under current fallow. If the land has not been cultivated for the past 1 to 5 years, then it comes under other than current fallow land. And if the land has not been cultivated for more than 5 years, it comes under wasteland. And if the land cannot be cultivated, it comes under barren land. Now let us understand the factors affecting land use. So there are basically two main factors, physical factors and human factors. Under physical factors, we have topography. So this means the relief of that region. So obviously the plains are better cultivated than the mountains, and there are more land in plains is under agriculture. Second, climate. So certain crops grow better in certain climates. For example, tea grows better in colder regions. And similarly, on the basis of soil also, on different soils, different plants grow. And also, if the area soil in that area is very fertile, then it will be put to agriculture, and if the soil is not fertile, then it will be diverted to other non-agricultural uses. Human factors. So the first is population density. So if the region is more densely populated, then there will be less land available for agriculture. Second, technology. So we know that in the urban areas, more land is diverted to non-agricultural uses, while in the rural areas which have less technology, most of the land is agricultural land. And third is culture and traditions. So for example, religious places such as Haridwar, Varanasi, etc., they have more amount of land dedicated to temples and tourism. Now let us understand land degradation. So land degradation is the process in which cultivable land becomes barren land due to various human and physical activities. Now let us understand the causes of land degradation. So first is mining. So in states like Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, deforestation due to mining is the main cause of land degradation. Second, overgrazing. So in states such as Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, etc., overgrazing is the main cause of land degradation. Third, over irrigation. So in states such as Punjab, Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh, over irrigation is the main cause of land degradation. So over irrigation is that the more water is supplied to plants than it is required. So now obviously this will result in waterlogging, and this also increases the amount of salt in the soil and also increases the alkalinity of soil. So this makes the soil very infertile. Fifth, processing of minerals. So mineral processing such as grinding of limestone for cement industry and calcite and soapstone for ceramic industry, it generates a huge amount of dust in the atmosphere. And once this dust settles down on the ground, then it prevents the seepage of water into the soil. So as the groundwater level decreases, the soil becomes less fertile and slowly it becomes desert soil. So now let us see the solutions to this problem. So first is planting more trees, that is afforestation. Second is we should put a control on the overgrazing by the animals. Third, we should plant shelter belts. So shelter belts are basically rows of trees which are planted to prevent the flow of wind. And fourth, we should also stabilize the sand dunes by growing thorny bushes in them. So the sand dunes, the soil from the sand dunes also keeps on blowing. So to reduce that, we should grow thorny bushes in the sand dunes to stabilize that sand dune. So all these methods are for the dry regions. And for the industrial and urban regions, we have some other methods which are management of wastelands. So the number of wastelands should be minimized. Second, we should put a control over the mining activities. Third, we should properly dispose all the industrial effluents, all the industrial wastes after treatment. So they should not be just dumped on the land, as this degrades the land.
Now let us practice various questions based on whatever we have learned in this video.
So this is all for today. Stay tuned for the second video, which will cover soil and classification of soil. Its link is provided in the description box. Thank you.